How do you think that demographic is looking at the developments we've seen in the courtroom this week?
Well, in many ways, these are a lot of the same questions that we were asking in 2016 with the Hollywood Access tape and a lot of the stories that came out then. And I think, as always, it's going to depend on what the big issues are for voters and how much they're willing to turn away from character flaws in order to support a party that best represents their views. I mean, we have two major parties here running. They have very distinct policy platforms in many ways. And a lot of Americans want to vote. They maybe don't like either candidate. Maybe they don't like either party. Maybe they don't like Trump as a person. And they have to figure out whether the policies that they support are worth voting for that candidate anyway.
Well, of course, one of those issues and policy issues is abortion, which has been in hyper focus in Arizona after initially the Supreme Court in the state ruled that an 1864 law that would effectively ban abortions in the state, except for in the case of the life of a mother, was enforced. Then we had the state House and Senate overturning that essentially. So where do things stand now on the abortion issue in Arizona specifically, now that that extremely hardline ban is no more, but there is still restriction in place?
Sure, that's a great example of an issue that really has sort of been overshadowing for most Americans, the trials that are going on. I mean, people are really thinking about these huge issues that pertain to their lives. Abortion is a great example. And here in Arizona, it has been all over the media because, as you mentioned, we had the state Supreme Court that ruled a pre-territorial law would be the law in Arizona, which banned all abortions without any exceptions. This is an incredibly unpopular ban. Only 7% of Arizona voters in a recent poll that I administered actually supported that kind of ban. And the state legislature did repeal that ban. Now, I think by repealing the ban, they have potentially lessened the urgency that people were feeling to come out to vote on a ballot measure in November in support of abortion rights. But I think the damage is done a little bit for Republicans in Arizona because abortion is back to the top of everyone's minds. It's back in the papers. And this ballot measure in November is going to be a highly mobilizing issue for a lot of voters here in Arizona and in 10, 11 other states across the country that are seeing similar ballot measures.
Well, and when we consider not just the presidential race in Arizona, what this may mean for likelihood of a swing state going for Donald Trump or Joe Biden, there's also down ballot races in Arizona that are important. Ruben Gallego, the Democrat running against Kari Lake, the Republican, for example. How is this an issue taken away from Gallego that could have made him more likely to defeat Lake in the senatorial race?
Sure. Well, most Arizona voters oppose a ban, and abortion is an issue that tends to benefit Democrats. Now, during that period of time where that ban was in effect, that was a huge benefit for Democratic candidates here in Arizona who could make a compelling argument that they've opposed a ban all along. And we saw Kari Lake and Juan Ciscomani come out to distance themselves from the ban. In many ways, I think the Democrats will continue to campaign on this issue because in Arizona, we still do have a 15-week ban. That's not in line with what most voters seem to want. So I think Democrats like Gallego will continue to campaign on this issue. We saw Kamala Harris out here a few weeks ago, talking about abortion with a lot of local Democratic candidates. Now, the momentum has probably slowed a bit since the legislature did repeal the ban, but it's still very much at the top of people's minds here in Arizona.
Something else that may be top of mind in Arizona, considering it is a border state, are questions around the border and migration. We know that this has been a problem for President Biden. Our understanding is tomorrow he could announce changes to asylum that could make it easier to expel migrants who are seeking asylum. Are those kind of changes on the margin going to be enough, Samara, or is the only thing that will make a difference for President Biden in a swing state in which our polling suggests he is lagging behind Trump going to be much more sweeping executive action?
Yeah, the border has been a real issue for Biden. I mean, it's no one here in Arizona, really across the country, is satisfied with how either party has been dealing with the border. And of course, in Arizona, it's an issue that people think about every day. Arizona's on the border. Our economy is very much intertwined with trade across the border. And in the polling that I've been doing, 85% of Arizonans say this is a really important issue. Now, I will say that I asked my voters in this poll, what do you care about? Do you care about people coming across the border, or do you care about guns and drugs coming across the border? And I do find that really the primary concern for most voters isn't necessarily immigrants themselves. It's the insecure border that allows for weapons, illegal drugs, and other illegal products coming across the border. But either way, this is a problem for Biden. It makes sense that he's making this such an important issue now that we're in these last final months as the campaign's really heating up. I don't know if it will make an issue, but as make a difference. But as you say, Arizona is a very, very tight race here. Our electoral outcomes are extremely narrow, and so anything could make a difference.